Hey there, Fiber Junkies! Welcome back to the Color Cauldron. I'm Johanna, the owner and dyer behind Potion Yarns and the host of this podcast. Today we're going to be doing just a very short demonstrational video, and I wanted to show you guys how I wind my yarn into center pole balls or just into a ball that you can knit from. Because if you've purchased yarn from me or another indie dyer or a nicer yarn company, you will notice that they come in a twisted hank. And if you open that up, it's just a big loose circle. And if you just knit directly from the circle, you will have snarls and tangles. So I wanted to show you guys how I take care of winding my yarn. Partly this was due to some questions that I had about it, but also it was due to answering questions from customers who have purchased my yarns and then get very frustrated because they're not used to knitting with yarn that comes that way. They're used to knitting with yarn that already comes in a ball or a wound skein, and they had some frustrations and struggles, and I realized not everybody is sure how to handle yarn like that when it comes in the mail. And if you don't have a Swift and a ball winder like I do at home, it can be a frustrating problem to try and avoid those tangles. So I wanted to show you how to do it with and without a Swift. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I hope you guys can join me next week again after this demo video, where we'll be getting back into our normal podcast segments, talking about lots of different topics and doing our giveaway. But for now, enjoy this short tutorial. So, what do you do when you order a great skein of yarn online and it comes like this? If you knit directly from this, you're going to have a big tangled mess. So I'm going to show you how to do it if you don't have a Swift and ball winder. To start, you're going to take this skein apart by opening it up. So just slip that out and let it unwind. Now you're going to get a nice big circle. If you have a friend or someone that is willing to sit there for a few minutes, you can just have them hold it on their hands like this, stretch it taut, and then you're going to cut the ties and start to wind from that. But if you don't have anybody willing to sit there and let you wind yarn, I'll show you how you can do it at home. Get the backs of a couple chairs. I'm using my dining room chairs, and a skein of mine stretches really great around 2 if I pull them slightly apart. This is going to hold the skein taut. You don't want it so tight that it's stretching the yarn, but you want it to be tight enough that it's not going to slip off. If it's like that and it's all slack and loose, that's not going to work very well. So pull it just tight enough. Then you're going to cut the ties. Some yarn will have just 1 tie, some will have 2 or 3. So just find the ties and cut as close as you can to the knot, because you don't want to cut any of the yarn that you're going to want to use. Alright, and then once you have cut the ties, you're going to find the free end. There will be 2 ends, and you'll want to find one that pulls free. And you're going to just put it around your fingers. I start with just 2 fingers, and I wrap it several times around. And then after you have a good little section built up, you can slip it off your fingers and start to wrap the other direction. So you're kind of creating like a cross. This is going to make just a ball of yarn. This is not going to make a center pull skein. If you would like to make a center pull skein, there are a bunch of tutorials on YouTube you can find for winding it by hand. But this is going to be a nice, easy way to just make a little ball and then just keep kind of rotating. And you just wind like that. So if you have a fancy Swift at home and a ball winder, you can do that as well, and I wanted to show you how I do mine. This is called an Amish Swift or a tabletop Swift because it just has 2 pieces in an X, and it has these pegs that you can remove and move to different sizes. So if you have shorter skeins or longer skeins, you can wrap it around. But basically you're going to do the same thing that we did with the chairs. You're just going to wrap it around the 4 points. If you have an umbrella Swift that opens up like an umbrella, it's the same concept. And then after you cut the ties, you're just going to take one of your free ends, and I'm going to run it over here, wrap it around twice to go through this little feed, and then there's another feed on the ball winder over here. I'm going to slide that through. There's a groove on the top of the ball winder that I'm going to slip the yarn through, and then I just start to wind. And this is going to create a center pull ball so that we can knit right from the center. And that is how you get those nice, neat little cakes. But I wanted to show you guys the way to do it by hand around the dining room chairs or around the the hands of your friend. In case you don't have one of these at home. Not everybody has a ball winder, and even though they are a really handy tool that I highly recommend if you're going to be knitting a lot of indie dyed yarn or nicer quality skeins, not everyone has that, and they can be a bit of an investment. So make sure that if you don't have one of these, you are still stretching your yarn taut. That's the most important thing before you start to wind, because if you start to wind when it's just in a big loose circle, that's how we get snarled up, tangled skeins of yarn. And after you just spent a nice amount of money on some really fancy, pretty hand-dyed yarn, you don't want to get it all snarled up. There's nothing worse than getting frustrated with a bunch of tangles. So I hope that was helpful for you guys.